I could say it this way. Each and every one of us, if you have a belly button, you came from your mother. And your mom, in the way that she was, especially if you're a firstborn, is no longer. She now has to become the mother. In whatever shape or form that takes for her and what she was able to do, it's a mystery. It's nothing that we as the children that are being gestated and formed and shaped and woven into being within our mother's wombs have any control over. But when we're born and we're created and we stay alive, we continue to move through these stages of life, it's our mother that is the one that is responsible for that she actually did birth us with all of her own dreams and ambitions and things set aside. She brought life into the world. And whether she is judged to be a good one or a bad one, the fact of the matter is that it happened. And so when they die, that is a very real piece of your connection is now gone from this reality, from this world. And that was that umbilical cord we call eve in Hawaiian. Kuno ke eve is like stand like those who fed you or stand like those who've given you life. And so it's like with the mom, with her passing is like another part of that umbilical cord that you were attached to is now gone. And so it's like a feminine energy that has sustained you throughout your life, even if she wasn't there. Because, a lot of people like to say, well, my mom wasn't there, so this doesn't apply to me. No, it applies to you. Because when she dies, you'll feel that effect. I've seen many men and women that don't know their parents, their parentage, their mothers or fathers, and they catch news that they've died. It changes you spiritually. It changes your psyche. So yeah, the grief is much closer because a part of my umbilical cord has been buried and burned. Yeah.
This experience is coming for us all. Just as we are all born of the mother, we too will all lose our connection to that mother. And, I was just thinking like we have this process that we call labors of the mother. And what really stands out in that for me is that the labors aren't just over with the labors of birth. Like the labor that the mother carries, the love that she carries for her children, that labor continues, well beyond the 9 months of gestation and the days of laboring, but into the life of the child, and so that's where that feeling comes from when it's lost, when it's no longer here.
Yeah. Again, it goes back to the walking with that, walking with the grief, like you were saying. It's like, this is where it's coming from. And that love is like, I have siblings and each of us had a different relationship with our mom. And so she carries a whole different personality in each of our minds and our experiences of her. Sometimes I get a little upset because I was like, well, that's not how she was, to me, but I can't tell them they're wrong because that was their mother too. So a lot of things that I do with my family and how we refer to each other, even though, we're siblings and things like that, it's always like, oh, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my mom. Not because we're like claiming, we're not saying like our mom. It's like mine.
No, that's my relationship to my mom.
Yeah, it's my relationship to my mom. And like, I'll look at my sister, I was like, where's my brother?
That's different than your relationship to your brother. That's my relationship to my brother.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like how we learn to just understand one another, because I would even say to my brother and my sister, like, I don't just love you and take care of you because you're my brother or you're my sister, but because you're my mother's son and you're my father's daughter, And so even in reference to each other is a form of grief in the way that you say, because now it's like you're taking on the other kinship worldview. Like, oh, this is your attachment to this one as well. That's why I love and respect you, So just tying things into the human experience about love and cherishing, because like you said, it's all going to happen. We're so fragile and our time is short. Yeah. And, to avoid such pain, like the sacred act of grieving a loved one that's now dead, to avoid that pain is a dishonor and a disservice to the people who've died. Yeah. So.
Thank you for all of that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to check in. I'm gonna check in on my family front. Just I'm coming off of after Mana. I went for 10 days to Ohio with my 4 kids and Hannah. We stayed next to my brother who has 5 kids and his wife, and my mom and dad came down. We had a little Jackson family convergence, and I'm the one also who moved away kind of from my family, who's all back in Ohio, and I'm in California. And so to go back full family and to have that experience of the loving and the praising and the honoring in this time while we still have time is made even more significant. I really am taking it in and understanding how much of a blessing it is, even though it's hard as fuck to travel across the country with 4 kids and like in the middle of winter. Like I was saying that was my hamblecha. That's my quest, is like to travel with this family and do that thing to get back to being
little
around.
tyrants.
Yeah, man. And in like little colds and this thing, and then fighting over toys, everything that comes with it. And it's so worth it because of the experience of my kids being able to be with their grandparents.
Yeah.
And for me to be a witness for my dad to see Winona as she's turning 1. Like, yes, we made it here. At least that, wow, we made it here. And so I'm checking in with an immense amount of gratitude, and for for the awareness to be so grateful for it. I feel like around holidays, people are like, "Oh, it's hard to go home." Ram Dass has that whole saying about, if you think you're somewhere, go home and spend a week with your family. Yeah. But the flip on that is like, if we can have a attitude of gratitude going into those situations, realizing the impermanence of it all, like forget the little political, disagreements we may have, or like those little talks and things that come up around the dinner table. Like take that in as good food, even if it rubs you the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like for me, I had 0 of that energy, and it was all like, man, just witnessing and being grateful. And like one little moment, my grandpa, my dad is great. He bought a bunch of presents for the 9 grandchildren that he and my mom have now. And they all opened their presents, and then they busted out, led by Holland, in a chant, "Best grandpa ever, best grandpa ever." While my dad is watching him open the presents he got for him. And it was just like, dang, it was so sweet, awesome. Man. There's so much sweetness. If we can really be here for it and make it a priority. And so I'm making it a priority for the closeness to my family, keeping my circle small and tight, checking in on my loved ones. I'm in with that. Is there any like advice or wisdom from this place that you would like to impart on our listeners to really cherish this time that they may have?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, another big part of grieving is praising, right? So
yes.
These are a lot of the teachings that I reiterate from like my teachers, like my Kumu Kuponai Molitao, Stephen Jenkinson, Martin Prechtel. I've had a lot of teachers, so I just reiterate it again in my own way. And so it's like in the times that are precious, we also have to praise. So just got to remember that grief is not a fixed thing, and it's not something you do so you can heal. So I just want to be clear about that. It's a vital necessity is what it is. It's a holy act, right? It's our soul's way of giving something precious back to the world for all the things that we've received and have been given or taken, right? Extracted from, right? So whenever you have an upset about how the world is going because it's out of balance and there's so much extraction, it's because people have forgotten how to grieve, right? It's like to love that something or that someone so much that you're willing to be like the best grandpa in the world, no matter what. Just because. And it works, and that's the praise, right? Because the grief is such so that it should split you open like a seed that needs to germinate. And then that seed cracking open allows water to come in. That's the tears of life through the soil to water those things. And then guess what happens, right? It's salty. It has all these other parts of mineralization that comes. That's the tears in that soil, right? But then that salt of the sorrow. So grief becomes fertile ground for these new things, these new old things to be born. And that's where praise is. Because as soon as the plant breaks through the ground, now it's a praising of life, reaching upward and toward the light, reaching for the sun. So in the old ways, grief is reaching for the sun. You like that metaphor as well? It's like being a son as well, or a daughter. But grief isn't meant to be a private affair, because that means it's sterile. It gets tucked away. And you know what happens when you sterilize something? You kill life. And then you want to hide it in a dark corner, and that's not what you want to do, because then the heart will harden. So in order for the grief to really move and the praise to be worthy, you have to make it loud and messy and beautiful. It must be sung and danced and shouted and wept in places, not just for yourself, but for the community. So what I'm trying to explain to everybody is, do not try to escape the thing that is inevitable and necessary for you to live your life fully with meaning and purpose. This is a deep riverbed of joy that will flow through as long as you embrace the pain. The pain will come. And that is a ceremony. And I'm not saying your life has to be painful and everything is suffering, because that's what people like to do too. It's like, for a lot of people, it's either this or that and nothing in between. And that's the problem, is that we can't look at our lives as something that's just happening because we're on automatic. Because the more we do that, the more numb we become and the less proactive we are within our own lives. So give your soul a gift of gratitude and give yourself that honest life, which is just let the things move and feel what you need to feel, because that's the true evolution. And it will break your heart. So don't be afraid. Let it shape you, let it stretch you, let it humble you. Offer it back to the earth and to your ancestors, and let these beautiful, great unseen forces that have been holding this world together for so long, is not asking you to rush, is not asking you to be anything other than who you truly are. And that's why it's, a beautiful process of being held in that beautiful burden. Just love well, love beautifully. Love like it's your work, because it's important.